CBS Atlanta News presents Public Affairs on Peach.
It is a scandal that brought down college football's winningest coach, Joe Paterno, and some say it's left Penn State University with a permanent black eye. The school is under fire for covering up a sexual abuse scandal of dozens of children at the hands of former defensive coordinator Jerry Sandusky. Good Sunday morning to you. I'm Brandon Rudat, co-host of Better Mornings Atlanta. This morning we are taking a look at the recent child abuse scandal that has rocked Penn State University, the world of college football, and the country as a whole. A grand jury has indicted Jerry Sandusky, the former defensive coordinator at Penn State University, accusing him of raping young boys over a period of 15 years. Many believe that the university knew about it but kept quiet so that it wouldn't tarnish the school's reputation. A grand jury report shows that several members of its staff, from the university president all the way down to a grad assistant, knew about those crimes but never reported them to police. They are crimes that Jerry Sandusky denies.
I say that I am innocent of those charges.
Innocent, completely innocent, and falsely accused in every aspect?
Well, I could say that, I have done some of those things. I have horsed around with kids. I have showered after workouts. I have hugged them, and I have touched their leg without intent of sexual contact.
That is former Penn State defensive coordinator Jerry Sandusky talking with Bob Costas last week on NBC's Rock Center with Brian Williams. It's the first time Sandusky has spoken to the media since his arrest. He's been charged with sexually assaulting 8 boys over the course of 15 years. They're all charges he denies, and he is free on bail. Authorities have also charged 2 former school administrators with trying to cover up that sex abuse. And the fallout from the scandal is more than anyone could have imagined. Legendary football coach Joe Paterno fired. College football's winningest coach has been publicly blasted for not doing more. In 2002, then graduate assistant Mike McQueary says he saw Sandusky sexually abusing a young boy in the showers at Penn State University. McQueary reported the abuse to Paterno, who also reported it to his superiors. But according to the grand jury testimony, the police were never called. McQueary disputes that. In an email released last week, McQueary told a friend he not only stepped in to stop the abuse, he discussed what he had seen with investigators. But it's the perceived inaction by Coach Paterno that's left Penn State University with a new football coach for the first time in nearly 50 years.
I take this job with very mixed emotions due to the situation.
Prosecutors say Sandusky used the charity he founded, the Second Mile, to find his victims. Now funding for the organization is gone. A $3 million state grant that was going to be used to build the Second Mile's new learning center is gone.
I have some severe reservations right now, and I don't think it's something that I can support going forward at this point in time, knowing what I know and what has been out there. And I don't believe that's something that Center County government should be a part of.
It's a story that has left so many shaking their heads and asking, how could this have happened? Who knew what? And how does a university recover from this scandal? Well, now more alleged victims are coming forward saying that they were abused by Jerry Sandusky, crimes dating back more than 20 years. The focus on this entire story has really been on the football program and Joe Paterno's departure. But what about all the kids involved here? Sharika Jackson is a therapist at the Youth Village's Inner Harbor campus in Douglasville. She works with children and teens who have been abused or neglected. Sharika, thank you for taking the time with us on this very difficult subject, a subject a lot of people really don't even feel comfortable ever talking about. I wanted to talk to you about this Jerry Sandusky, a man in authority with a big, powerful job as a football coach at one of the biggest football universities, had access to all of these young kids. In the line of work that you do you often see that someone with all that power having access to those kids, where everybody says there's no way that this man could do it, there's no way that he can be a child abuser? What have you seen in your line of work?
I've seen kids being abused by those in authority, and that's basically what sexual child abuse is. Adults taking advantage of children for their own sexual stimulation.
And when we see a case like this, Jerry Sandusky, and he was asked by Bob Costas, did you ever do anything inappropriate with these children? And he kind of said, well, you know, I may have wrestled around with some kids. I may have, you know, sort of touched their thigh. You as a counselor, how do you convince a child? You know, a child may say, well, I don't know if I was, you know, really sexually abused. What is sex abuse? Because they're a young kid. So how often does a young kid go and report that to somebody?
Well, you teach your children at an early age about good touches versus bad touches, and you also let them know the appropriate places to touch. For instance, you might tell them, you know, the areas that are covered when you wear a bathing suit are the areas that no one should touch. And so with them knowing the difference between a good touch and a bad touch, then they know when they know when someone is touching them inappropriately.
Does it surprise you to see somebody like a Jerry Sandusky at one of the biggest football universities that this country has ever seen, and then to branch off and open up almost a youth center with young kids? Does this something like this surprise you?
I really don't know all of the details in that particular case. But I do know and understand how severe and how serious child abuse is. So nothing really surprises me as it relates to the measures that people go through to take advantage of our young children.
For a young kid out there, you know, when they're growing up and they're a young child and they are being sexually abused, you know, I know that you said, you know, you want to try and teach your kids, have an open conversation, what is appropriate touching and what is not appropriate touching. But oftentimes these victims, I guess you could say, so brainwashed because a lot of times they're sexually abused by somebody that they know. And they're afraid to tell on that person to even their own parents.
Because many times children are actually bribed or coached into doing stuff, and people do tell them, if you tell, I'll hurt your family, or if you tell, I won't do this, or if you do this, I'll give you some candy or something like that. And children are easily taken advantage of because of what they don't know or because of their innocence.
And do kids, from the kids you've ever worked with, was there ever a period of time where they said, you know, they question whether or not they were really sexually abused?
Yes, I've had that to happen. I actually do something called trauma-focused cognitive behavior therapy. And in that, I educate the children on abuse depending on what the abuse was. So with sexual abuse, when we do talk about good touches and bad touches and giving consent for stuff and what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, they are able to realize that some of the touches that they did experience from others was actually sexual abuse.
I know, especially when we're talking about the world of sports, right? Where a head coach may smack a kid on the butt, you know, and say, hey, good job. And then another, you know, Jerry Sandusky saying, well, I touched this kid on the thigh, I was wrestling around with him. How hard is it to convince a parent that says, hey, you know, this is inappropriate?
How hard
is it a fine line?
Yeah, but if you touch me on my thigh without my permission and I'm under 18, that's abuse. Touches like that, you need my permission.
Advice to parents who may be watching now. If their young kid plays a sport, especially this really has opened up our eyes to sports in general, where a lot of parents take their kids, drop them off at practice for 2 hours, leave, and then come back. What's your advice to parents out there?
To monitor your child's behavior at the practice, because a lot of times kids become withdrawn, or he all of a sudden does not want to go play football anymore. He doesn't want to go back out to the basketball court. He feels uncomfortable being around that particular coach or that particular person that's touching him.
That's a big warning sign.
Yes.
If suddenly the kid doesn't want to go to practice anymore.
Yes.
All right, Sharika Jackson, we really appreciate your time with us and continuing to work with parents. And hopefully we're opening up the dialogue here today with this show for parents to have an open, conversation with their children, to kind of get the word out especially.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. When we come back, how do you as a parent cope with allegations that your child has been abused and the warning signs to look out for?